let's see whether this is actually working. I would expected this now to show on your...
Here we go. I think we're on.
Okay, welcome. Good afternoon, or depending on where you are in the world, good morning, good evening. We are here live from London. It's 5 o'clock now here in London, so it's time for our bi-weekly Greenfoot Live session. Welcome back for those who have been here before, or welcome to those of you who are seeing us for the first time. My name is Michael Curling. I'm one of the Greenfoot developers.
And I'm Davin McCall. I'm another one of the Greenfoot developers.
Yes, and if you have watched the previous sessions, you have seen me once before. Last week then it was Amjad and Neil doing this session. Davin hasn't been here at these sessions before, but now it's most of us now who have, one of our team is missing. Hamza hasn't shown up yet in our sessions, but you're getting to see all of our team. So we will do another live session today where we will be chatting about some topics, and it is your chance to tell us what you would like us to talk about. There was one comment in the green room, that's the teachers community site for Greenfoot, saying or suggesting that we should have more live interaction with the audience and not just talk between us. That's exactly what our idea was. We actually want to get to the point where we can have live interaction. But to have the live interaction, we need to get questions from you. So feel free while you're watching this, if you have something that you would like us to talk about, if you have questions or suggestions for topics, to type it into the chat box on your YouTube page. There is a chat box. That's your way to send us your questions. We can't see you, we can't hear you, but we can read your text. We have a second screen over there that Davin can keep an eye on. So if you type any questions in there during these sessions, we'll try to pick them up, and we are quite happy to then see whether we can answer them. For a start, while we wait for someone to ask something or suggest a topic, we have one question that we got between last session and now on the page of the last Greenfoot Live session. Someone asked an interesting question, and there was, could you make a phone app version of Greenfoot, to have Greenfoot run on a phone? The straight answer, the simple answer is no, essentially, right? That is
right.
Because, well, there are various problems that we have. The architecture of Greenfoot itself is quite complex. It uses 2 Java virtual machines. On an iPhone, that would be essentially a non-starter anyway, because there's no Java support on iPhones, and Greenfoot is built in Java and needs Java. On Android, you get closer because you got Java, but the phone...
Well, or not quite Java, I guess. Even on Android, it's...
yeah, okay. Java variant. Even there, I guess the hardware wouldn't be good enough. But it's not only that. I mean, even if the processor time were there, you wouldn't really want to type a program in on a phone, would you?
Yeah, that's right. It's not really suited for actually developing.
Yeah, but why I'm bringing that up, why I think it's a really interesting question, is even though the straight answer for the whole question, could Greenfoot as a whole run on a phone? I don't think that would work. But there is a really interesting aspect to it, and that is, could a Greenfoot scenario run on a phone? So not all of Greenfoot. You program your scenario in Greenfoot, but then export it to a phone. That's a suggestion that we've heard repeatedly over a few years, and there it starts getting interesting.
Yes, indeed. That has, I mean, for a long time we sort of shied away from any attempt to try and put Greenfoot scenarios on a phone for various reasons, mainly for the same technical reasons that we don't put Greenfoot itself on a phone. But, there's been a number of developments recently which I think everyone will find quite interesting, actually. So I suppose what we really need to explain though is we didn't set out originally to put Greenfoot scenarios on phones as such, but we had another problem that we wanted to solve, which is that it's getting more and more difficult to run Java applets in the web browser, and this is a problem for our website where
yeah, maybe we can just show people quickly the Greenfoot website. I mean, many Greenfoot users will have seen that, but if you have seen the scenarios running on the Greenfoot website, then you also know how difficult it is and the problems. And that is connected to running on the phone, because what we will get to in a minute when we look at this is another problem that we're trying to solve for the website and applets actually also might serve to get Greenfoot scenarios on the phone. And we can in fact show you today how you can run a Greenfoot scenario on the phone, if you're lucky. It's not quite ready, but some of it works already. So let me show you let's quickly run through the, if I switch that over so that I can see my screen here. I've got some scenario here. Some of you will have seen that. That's one of the scenarios that we often use for our instruction. It comes from the Greenfoot book, so you may have seen that. It's an ant simulation. Okay, that's finished now. And let's say I want to export that now to the Greenfoot gallery. So there's a share button here. If I click share, I get this export dialog. And here, because I have exported that before, that's already filled in, except for my password. I just have to remember my password. What's my password? I think it's this. I should have tested that before we started broadcasting. So if I do this, this seems to have worked. So I did remember my password. What happens when you export this is that takes you to the Greenfoot website, and here, top of the recent updates on the website is now my scenario, and I can go here, and on the Greenfoot website, there is now my Greenfoot scenario, and I can run it here. So far, so good, but there are some problems with it. And that is the technology that we're using here for the Greenfoot website is Java applets, and Java applets are not really running well anymore.
That's right. You're using one of the few browsers right now that actually does still run them without really any problems.
Yeah, I'm using Safari here. I'm on a Mac. I think Firefox doesn't run it at all anymore, is that right?
Firefox has dropped support. I'm not sure if it might still be possible to get it to run, but it's not straightforward.
Yeah, Chrome doesn't really support applets
for some time.
With the Microsoft browsers, I have no idea, but I doubt that this runs well there.
I believe Internet Explorer still runs Java, but I'm not sure how well.
Anyway, it's on the way out. Applets as a technology is not really supported anymore by Oracle. It's essentially a dying technology. On many browsers it doesn't run anymore. Even on Safari here where it still runs, it's buggy. If you have anything with key input doesn't work properly anymore. It reads a key once and then never again. And so I expect that most people who use the Greenfoot gallery here will download the scenario and run it locally, because that's the only way in which it works well. So this running in the browser, which we were once, when we wrote this, really proud of, is actually completely broken nowadays. So we've decided a while ago to rewrite this. And since Devin is the one doing all the work on the rewrite, maybe you can tell us what the plan is, what we do instead.
Well, the obvious, the nature of the problem is that we can't run Java in web browsers very easily. So the obvious solution is to change the scenarios to run in something that is available on all web browsers, and that of course is JavaScript. It's quite a different language to Java, despite the similarities in name. It's a different type of technology. It's designed for running as part of the web browser, inside the web browser, without any plugins, and it's used in nearly every website that you visit these days. Has some JavaScript behind it. So it's an obvious answer. It's not going away anytime soon. It's quite performant. I mean, this would have been a problem maybe 10 years ago. The JavaScript wasn't quite up to scratch, but
so the plan is that we will now, when Greenfoot scenarios gets uploaded to the Greenfoot website, automatically on the fly translate the Java code, the scenario code, to JavaScript and then run JavaScript in the browser. That is, those of you who have looked at the Green Room, we have mentioned that a while ago. We've been working on that for a while because there were some changes that we needed to make in preparation. The Greenfoot API was using some parts of the Swing and AWT API. We used the Java color class and the font class, and these are classes that are very closely tied to Java. So we rewrote our Greenfoot API recently to get rid of those in the Greenfoot API so that we can get rid of the Java dependency to have the possibility to translate.
Right, at least the Swing dependency, which is the problematic part of Java for us, really.
Yes, because when we are running in JavaScript in a browser, we will not have Swing available.
That's right.
But that has been done. I think with 3.1, was it 3.1 was the version where the API changed.
That's right.
To get rid of the Swing classes in the Greenfoot API.
Yes, Greenfoot 3.10.
And so ever since then, Devon has been working on our Java to JavaScript translation.
Yes. And it's starting to work. That's the good news. So Michael has seen some examples of this already, but it might be worth showing the audience. We've just seen ants running as Java, so I wonder if we could have
there is now actually a secret switch, which Devon just told me about a few days ago, and I've tried it out. You can see here on screen my page with the Java version of my scenario. This is one where the Java version actually still works. If you have another browser that might be just completely blank and you see nothing on this page because your browser doesn't support applets anymore. But if you go to the URL up here and type a magic incantation at the end of the URL -JS equals true, not minus.
No minus, question mark.
Question mark. At the end, question mark JS equals true. On the same page where your scenario lives, then it will attempt to load a JavaScript version. Oh, it says also no JavaScript version available. No, that is, I've just uploaded this.
Uploaded that one.
That actually, it takes a while. It gets queued for translation.
It does, and it's just reprocessing the entire gallery right now because I've updated the software just recently. So, okay, we unwittingly foiled our own demonstration.
I should maybe then just use a different scenario that I uploaded earlier. If I take marbles, for example, another example from the book. So this is another scenario that I've got uploaded to the gallery that has been uploaded some days ago, so that should have been long enough in the queue that it hopefully is translated.
Sure, that's fine.
So I'll try that one.
I need to rework the queue processing so that it does actually handle the most recently updated scenarios first. That's what it's meant to be doing.
That's probably what people are most often interested in. What they've done. Okay, I'll try that here. And there we go. And this time, if there is the JS equals true parameter in the URL, this is now running as JavaScript, and I can actually recognize that because the control buttons look slightly different. If you really know what it looks like normally, then you can recognize it. And if I run this now, I can run this scenario. It runs perfectly fine, and this is actually running in JavaScript.
That's right.
So that's fantastic, because one, this should run in every browser now. That solves one really big problem that we had, so we can eventually, once that is done, rewrite the gallery and get that all working again. But as a side effect,
we can also run it on mobile phones.
Yes, we should be able to run it on the phone, because JavaScript is supported also by browsers on mobile phones. If you now load this,
in fact, I believe I still have the ants scenario that we couldn't show just then running as JavaScript on my phone, so we can actually, yes I do, I have it here. If I hold that up to the camera, we can see, so there's ants running on an Android phone. And
I
it
have.
should also work on an iPhone.
Let me see that. I've got an iPhone, and I have, just before we started broadcasting, I actually loaded the page with the ants. And if you look at this, that's the ant scenario written in Greenfoot, running on my phone. So that's fantastic. That is something that a lot of people asked for, and that is a huge step forward. So by having a translation to JavaScript, we essentially also have now a way how it can run on the phone. So instead of maybe translating natively to Android, that might not be necessary anymore. Maybe we should just make a link on the gallery that opens up the scenario without any other text around on the page, full screen, so that you can run it full screen on your phone.
Yeah, I think we need to, in general, rework the gallery for mobile devices a little bit better. That's something we can think about in the future. But yes, the ability to have the scenario go full screen on a phone is probably quite important.
So far, from what we've seen just now, it looks like it's all working and it's all there. We've very carefully chosen a couple of scenarios where we knew it would work because we've tried them out before. So how far is it really? What is working at the moment and what isn't?
Okay. Well, a lot of things are working. I mean, the fact that we have the marbles scenario working actually shows that there is quite a good deal of things that do work, as long as you stick to the standard Greenfoot API, and that's the new Greenfoot API. That's since.
Okay, so first of all, if people want to try this out now, first thing then is they have to use Greenfoot 3.1.
Yes.
You can't use an older version.
Older versions will probably not work. They may work. Some scenarios do translate.
Okay, to make it easy, just let's say use 3.1.
Absolutely recommend 3.1.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what?
Okay, you must not use any swing classes, which is probably a given anyway. You can do user interaction, you can do graphical display using the pure Greenfoot API, so there should be no need normally.
There are actually very few cases where people explicitly use swing classes, except in our old API when there was color and font being used in our own API, where we essentially made them use those two swing classes. But it's rare that people open dialogues or windows.
Occasionally more advanced users do that sort of thing, but that's one of the things that you're just going to have to live with. It doesn't work.
So you can't use, for example, the Java buffered image class, which you can get access to if you try through the Greenfoot API.
That's right, yeah.
Okay, so those things will never work. So that is even when we're finished, you just have to stay away from the swing classes and AWT classes. Of those things that we want to make work, that is, essentially all the Greenfoot API should eventually work. What are the things that currently are not yet implemented?
Okay, in the Greenfoot API, the probably big thing is the user info class is not working at all at this point in time.
Okay, the user info class, for those who don't know, because also a lot of people will probably not use that very often. That's a class to store high scores and other user information on a server in case you want sort of multiplayer games or high score tables that are persistent across. Okay, so forget about that. That doesn't work yet. But that's still only a very small corner of the Greenfoot API.
Yep.
Everything else, do you think might be working?
There may be some glitches. I'm not promising that it's all 100%, and this is quite early days of being able to actually run the scenario, so we haven't really fully tested everything.
Okay, so if you want to try it at home, you write a Greenfoot scenario, you export it to the gallery with a share button, you get your URL, it runs or doesn't run maybe because it by default takes it to the applet. But this trick with writing the question mark JS equals true, that's not published anywhere yet. That's really under development as we speak. And in fact, some of that I've only seen from Devin. Devin only told me about that last week. So it's really at the cutting edge of development. There are bound to be some problems, right? We haven't really tested many scenarios yet.
Yeah, so the more people we can get to test it, the better. And all you have to do is put the little incantation on the end of the URL, and then you'll see the JavaScript version of your scenario. And if you find any problems, and they're not problems that we mentioned in this talk, then we'd definitely like to know about them.
Maybe you can see whether there are some questions.
Let's see.
People
Okay.
want to know anything specific?
Okay. There's someone asking how to add counters. I think probably that's a good question for
Is
the
asking
forum.
what?
But how to add counters? I think into scenarios. So I think that's.
Actually, with counters, we talked in the last couple of Greenfoot Live sessions about how to add text to the screen, and as part of that, we actually showed also an example how to add a counter to screen. So maybe for that one, we just point you back to our previous sessions.
Yeah.
We've talked about that just a couple of weeks ago.
I think there might be some videos on the website too.
Yes,
in
there
the
is.
documentation section.
Oh, that's right. If you look on the Greenfoot website under the documentation section, there is a section called the Joy of Code videos, and there is also a short video that shows you how to add counters.
Another interesting question is, will Greenfoot be based on JavaFX in the future? That's from, I'm not going to pronounce this correctly, but I'll Surabat.
The answer is yes.
The answer is yes, yeah.
We've been talking about that for a while, and we have started partly to do that at the moment already. You may know that Greenfoot now supports not only Java, you can also write Greenfoot scenarios in a new language called Stride. Maybe another time we can also talk about Stride a bit here and there. And so there are two different editors in Greenfoot now. You get the standard text editor if you program in Java. If you create a new class, you can choose whether you want a Java class or a Stride class. When you choose Stride, you get a different editor, and that editor is written in JavaFX. So that is one part of the Greenfoot interface where we are already using JavaFX. And in fact, the current situation that we have, that part of the interface is written in Swing and part is written in JavaFX, causes us quite a few problems. Some of you may have seen that there are glitches where screens don't get repainted properly, where sometimes a screen is white or black and you have to sort of select the text to make it visible. There are sort of graphics glitches that we know about. Actually, we're working on this.
Yeah.
So do we know exactly where that comes from?
More or less. I believe it doesn't happen so much with Greenfoot as it does with BlueJay for.
Yeah, and BlueJay was worse, wasn't it?
But it is an interaction between a certain Swing component and JavaFX component.
Yeah. Theoretically, by the documentation, you should be able to mix Swing and JavaFX in an interface, and there are actually Java classes to support this, which we're using. But somewhere deep in the bowels of these classes, out of our control, there's something going on that causes repaint issues sometimes. So we are actually working on trying to get rid of Swing in the Java interface and rewrite the whole Greenfoot interface using JavaFX. That will, for those users who have these problems, not all users will have that. That depends mostly on your graphics card probably that you're using. So it will only be certain hardware where that happens. But we will, over the next few months, try to rewrite the Greenfoot interface completely in JavaFX to get rid of those problems. That answers that question?
I think so. Yeah. We have another question here. Is Greenfoot supposed to replace BlueJay?
Also it's a really interesting question, and we get asked that occasionally. Very interesting question. The answer for me is no. Greenfoot, actually, you may have seen that in the green room if you're there. We just last week put a note up there. Greenfoot just had its birthday. It was last week, exactly 11 years ago that we published Greenfoot for the first time, Greenfoot 1.0. So Greenfoot has been around for a while. And while we are supporting Greenfoot and continuing to develop it, we are also still developing BlueJay. So in our mind, and that now for over 10 years, we've continued with BlueJay despite the availability of Greenfoot. So Greenfoot is not intended to replace BlueJay. BlueJay still has a purpose. The purpose of using BlueJay is quite different from Greenfoot in my mind. BlueJay is the older system. It existed first. And when I started designing BlueJ, I was thinking about introductory programming, and at the time, introductory programming for me was introductory university level, because that's where I worked. That is sort of what I was thinking about when I was thinking about programming beginners. That was around 1999 or so, a long time ago now. That shows you how old I am. And that is the target group really that BlueJ had, was sort of learners at level of introductory university, or maybe last year of school or so in a computer science class. But later then, programming became more and more sort of earlier in school education, and programming education was much more often in sort of middle school years, that is 15, 16-year-olds or so. And the situation there is quite different, because you don't have only people who have chosen to study computer science. Often it is taught to a whole class, everyone, the whole cohort. And there you want to teach quite differently. For us, what we thought is what you want to do there in that situation is you don't want to teach all the details of professional programming practice first. First, you want to get some excitement and some motivation, and show people what is possible, and get something interesting on screen very quickly. And that is what Greenfoot is designed to do, while still teaching proper object-oriented programming concepts. Not fudging things over or simplifying things, but still being a much more motivational visual entry. So in my mind, that different target groups. Greenfoot is for people who want a first impression of what programming can be and what programming can do, and get some excitement. And BlueJ is for people who have decided that they are more serious about programming, want to now learn some more details, and want to learn the theory behind it more deeply, and want to learn about program quality and testing and so on, and really go a step further. So in my mind, BlueJ comes afterwards. Yeah. That's my answer.
So we'd see it quite normal as someone to use Greenfoot in secondary school, for instance, and then go into a university course and use BlueJ.
Yeah,
potentially.
That's a very common sequence. Sometimes also Greenfoot in sort of middle school years in school, and BlueJ already in school in the last year or two at school level, and Abitur in Deutschland, or A level in England, or AP classes in the US, or whatever the equivalent is in your country. Sometimes BlueJ gets used already at school level, but usually in classes where pupils have made a choice to study computer science, where they're already a little bit more committed. Okay, have you got another question? What's the time, by the way? I should. Let's take another 5 minutes or so. We are aiming with these sessions at sort of about half an hour, so we don't want to go too long.
I don't think there's any more questions that we really need to deal with right now. Someone says, thanks for all the tutorials. You really helped me at my school project. No problem.
Excellent. That's always good to hear.
It is good to hear. Are you going to implement refactoring? Has just come in from Thomas Jorg again.
Oh, that's actually a very nice fitting question, because it links directly with what we've just talked about, the difference between Greenfoot and BlueJ. Because for Greenfoot, the answer probably is no. But for BlueJ, that is a really interesting question. Because refactoring is a practice where it gets a bit more serious about programming, where you're talking not only generically about what programming can do for you and what is sort of trying to foster computational thinking. So, but you're getting a bit more into sort of professional practice already, code quality, keeping your code clean and so. And that is something that currently we teach with BlueJ much more than with Greenfoot. Right. So, refactoring is a really interesting topic. We don't have very much support in BlueJ for that either at the moment.
No.
But in BlueJ would be an interesting, I think, environment to put it into. For Greenfoot, which we were talking about just now, the answer is probably no, because for Greenfoot there is a competing goal, and that is to keep the interface and the functionality as simple as we can make it. One very important aspect for us for Greenfoot is to keep the hurdle to entry and the interface and usability really, really easy to learn, easy to pick up, and not overload the interface, and not put too many things in that are for a bit more advanced use. And a lot of things, a lot of ideas like refactoring was just mentioned. Sometimes people mention testing, sometimes they mention source control, repository systems. Each of those in its own is a really interesting idea that we could put into Greenfoot. But if you pick up all those ideas and put it all in, the environment just becomes too big and too complicated. And then so our answer usually is, once you reach the point where you're interested in those kinds of things, move on first to BlueJ. And if BlueJ doesn't give you what you want, move on, go to NetBeans or Eclipse or IntelliJ or whatever. Once you really need those things, you're ready to move into a professional environment, I think.
Absolutely, yeah.
What do you think about refactoring in BlueJ? Is that something where people should already move on to Eclipse, or does refactoring in BlueJ make
I can
sense?
see maybe that we could implement some basic refactoring, renaming of variables and methods and things like that.
Certainly in the BlueJ book, code quality is a very important chapter. There's a chapter talking only about making code changes to improve your quality, so about refactoring essentially.
Right.
Without having explicit support in the environment.
Yeah, and I think that's certainly something that we could do. It doesn't overload the interface to have one or two options for some simple refactoring tasks. I think if you look at the professional IDs, the range of refactorings they offer is well beyond what we would probably ever want to offer in BlueJ.
Yeah, but you could have a few of the more common ones,
right,
just to introduce the idea of refactoring, maybe.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think for the sake of sticking to our target time of about half an hour, we will finish for today. We will be back here. I don't know whether exactly the two of us, someone from our team, a couple of people will be back here in 2 weeks. As we said before, we are aiming for having a session every 2 weeks. Have we dealt with sort of the questions that came in there?
I think so. There might be one or two other minor ones on programming issues. I would suggest, if we haven't talked about something you wanted to know about, you can always ask on the website, on the
yes,
discussion forums there.
We will look through them after the session and maybe pick them up in the next session. You can also, if you watch this time delayed, if you watch it on our channel later, type questions in the comments on the YouTube page. We will pick them up, and if they fit in, might pick them up in one of the next sessions. Okay.
Good.
That's it.
Right.
Well, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Now I have to find my stop button again here. There we are. Goodbye.